Well, I wasted all of my videos that I had planned to make for the rest of this week, but today's one of those days in which you don't really want a pre-recorded video. Today was one of the worst days that I've ever had, not because something bad happened to me, but just because the way that people feel about life right now. I was talking to my boss today, and he was getting real about how easy it is in order to get rich in America because he's a very wealthy man. And I pointed at Gen Zero today and I said to him, Gen Zero here is dirt poor. The only reason he's still living indoors is because his family sends him money. Do you think that he deserves to be in that living in poverty? And he just kind of looked at me like poverty is a choice. All right, so that happened today. Second thing that happened to me today is driving a person to the airport, and this is a person who hasn't been able to find a real job. Before this job, she didn't have a real job either, and before that job, she didn't have a real job either. So her last two jobs have been working low end call center style jobs doing sales and customer support. Well, once she got fired from that job this last time, and she was unemployed from July to November last year. They literally kept her for exactly 1 year before they ended up getting rid of her on a point system. And since I have so many females that I know that aren't making it, I decided that I'd take the time of picking her up and dropping her off at the airport to ask her what she was doing, why she wasn't homeless yet. And I asked her, out of all of the things that she does, selling feet pictures, selling her unmentionables online through apparently the same company that does the feet thing. And she said, out of all of the hustles that she's doing online, the only reason why she's still living inside is because of the arranged dating, because she went on these websites, found very wealthy men that will pay for her to take her out to dinner. And then there's the extras. And she said, unless a woman's willing to do that, there's not going to be a job for you down there for Susie Rottencrotch at the bottom with the minimal 4 year education. That's what all of these women have in common. They all have 4 year degrees, but they're having to turn to not legitimate work in order to survive. And I that's exactly what I typed into Chat GPT, and we're going to go through paragraph by paragraph, and I'm going to tell you what Chat GPT said about the struggle of young women trying to figure it out in a world where they can't find jobs anymore. Because as I was walking through the Kroger's today, the line was all the way to the back of the store at the self checkout. For some reason, they had self checkouts 1 and 3 closed, so they only had one self checkout lane, and the lines were outrageous. Like I don't think I've worked in that store before, and I hadn't seen lines like that. All right, without further ado, let's get into today's three talking points. They're full Chat GPT talking points. Again, you guys don't know, I don't like doing this, but they are good. So here we go. Despite being qualified and willing to work, countless single moms find themselves constantly overlooked or underappreciated in the job market. Companies often require extensive availability or flexibility, which can be impossible for single parents managing family responsibilities alone. As a result, many feel forced into unconventional ways of making money just to cover the basics. Unconventional ways of making money. That is the worst possible way of putting the fact that these women are having to look for alternatives to office jobs or whatever job women typically take. There are more women working in clerical jobs. Obviously, men can use their muscle, but I don't see a lot of construction. I really have seen that the path towards construction, since most people can't afford a home in our society, there's been a lot less demand for construction, and that's just my observation. But the jobs that typically take men are hard jobs. They're trade school jobs, they're plumbing, they're trade jobs. But what do you do when those industries slow down? And for women, once the offices started going away, then you had less office workers. And that means that there's more competition for one job out there than you could possibly imagine. Pre pandemic, it wasn't unheard of for me to go to a job interview where they had 2,000 applicants and only brought in three people. And out of those three people, they didn't like those applicants. So sometimes they'll do this. They'll bring in these people, they'll be qualified on paper, and then they'll ask you, what's your availability like? And can you be fully committed to Evil Corp? They need that 100% loyalty. If you tell them that you're going to have to deal with your kids' problems, flexibility is not built into the proletariat. They don't need people who can't be available nights and weekends and at every other time of the day. They need people who are willing to sacrifice their lives for the profits of Evil Corp. And women these days, especially single moms of multiple children that have no other way of making money, are going to have to turn to alternative careers because it's not possible. And while I was driving her today, she said she'd applied for every single job that she'd come across. And I'm just like, I hear it. I hear it from people out there. My physical therapist friend's husband, when he was making $120,000 a year as a director of sales, and then he has to go look at a job working next to someone that's still in high school. I know how that feels because after I finished university, I had to go take any job. It was one of the most humiliating moments of my entire adult life is having to take a job at Walmart while I was highly educated. And the more that they get rid of senior level jobs for entry level jobs, the more this is going to be happening to them. But to me, I think it's disproportionately hitting women, and women are having to do whatever it takes. All right, paragraph number 2. When stable work feels out of reach, some women turn to paid dating sites as a last resort, setting clear boundaries and prices. This isn't glamorous or easy, it's a calculated decision to keep the lights on, food on the table, and children taken care of. For many, it's a means of survival born out of the need to provide rather than a personal choice. Is poverty a personal choice? Do you think these women, all these women that I know, have made the personal choice that they don't want to work, that they want to have to suffer while they look for something? Because you guys tell me this all the time that you've gone 6 months without even bothering to get a job interview. It took me 3 years to get back into the job market after COVID. And I know a lot of you out there are looking at these jobs and thinking to yourself, I can't do this job. In fact, today you could feel the criticism in a rich person's face at people who failed. And Gen Zero isn't a person that should have failed. With rich family members, they should have given him the work that he needed in order to be a rich middle class person. But instead, you look at his work history: warehouse, fast food, hospitality. What was he working at? A drive-through liquor store, a pawn shop. Like, you look at his job history, and you're just like, how can someone really have that many crappy jobs? And I can just look at my own work history and tell you the exact same thing. It's retail, it's crap, it's warehouse, it's whatever you can take. But as a man, you don't have the alternative. You're not going to go onto those sites and find myself a 80-year-old woman that wants to go out with a guy half her age. It's just not going to happen. And that making that personal choice to have to go there and do this was really rough, because this person that I'm talking about even looked into selling her own number two. But the schedule was so rigid that you had to make these appointments on that it just wasn't feasible for her. Anyhow, moving on to our third paragraph. The fact that single moms feel pushed into using paid dating sites reflects a deeper societal issue. And we're talking real deep. We're talking about getting in there and going all the way up to your elbow deep. And that stuff, it don't smell good. But you're having to go deep. And I like the fact, normally I hate when AI says the word deep, but this time deeper societal issues really hits home. I can really feel that fist hitting the heart. So a lack of affordable childcare, rigid job expectations, and limited social safety nets create situations where single moms are left without viable paths forward. This setup forces many to choose between dignity and survival, a choice no one should have to make. Oh my God, this is one for the books. Between dignity and survival. Today, Mello messaged me earlier in the day that she was working inside of a Walmart and that an old man walked up to her and and let out past some gas right next to her so hard that she thought she was going to get pink eye from this guy because she said it sounded like it was absolutely 100%. It was a shark. It was real. She said it was watery, and she's just like I told her to fire back. You know, if they're gonna do that to you, if someone's gonna do that to you in a store, disrespect you as a retail worker. Because I was telling the person that I was driving today in my car about this story, and she said, you know, I've never felt more worthless than when I worked in retail. The dignity and survival, it is everywhere. Every job that I pointed out yesterday, whether it's the Kroger's, the Burger King, the Circle K, the restaurant, the drive-through liquor store, working inside the gym, working inside the pizza parlor, wherever it is, your dignity is something that you have to push across the table every time you put on a uniform, every time you're wearing a name tag, every time that you're doing something, there is a lack of dignity having to do with it because you have no dignity when you work at the bottom. And it's very true of almost every single job that you will ever take in your life. Dignity is left at the door when once you have to go in there and take that tiny little paycheck. Tiny little paycheck, and you trade in what's left of your dignity. Having to use a website to support yourself because you can't find anything better. Is it really your dignity that's on the table, or is it something deeper? I mean, are we really looking at a deeper issue in our society in which women have no choice? Because as a male, even right now, there is no dignity in the kind of work that I do. My work doesn't provide sufficient uh, income to live comfortably. And isn't that really what we're all struggling to do? Is that the dignity that we're willing to pull down our tidy whities down to our ankles for good old fleece? Is it dignity that we really feel? Is that what you're really trading in order to have a paycheck? I don't feel it. I feel like there's no dignity. As long as you're not rich, being alive as a human being has no dignity and is full of daily uh, humiliation to the point where you wonder if it's even worth it. I ask myself that question every single day when I'm driving to work. Is this worth it? Do I have the dignity of looking at myself in the mirror after Fleece has had his way with me? And the answer will always be no. But do I have a choice? Is there really the freedom to say, I don't want to work here. I don't want to do this. I don't want to come back to this crummy job. I just want to be home. I want to be comfortable and I want to be left alone. But society won't let us be. Society demonizes people that don't want to participate. Like today, while I was walking through that Kroger's, I heard some old person say out loud because they were really, really upset by the giant lines inside the Kroger because, as they said, nobody wants to work anymore. And when I got up to the front of the line, I said to the girl working the self checkout, I said, I just heard some that nobody wants to work anymore. And she said, yeah, nobody wants to work here anymore. And the truth, it doesn't come down to the dignity of working in a Kroger's. It comes down to being paid nothing and treated like nothing. Because remember, if you're not worth anything, you're not going to get paid anything. So, a choice no one should have to make is whether or not they want to take a low paying job. And that video that I made about this topic yesterday shot up to 2,000 views in just a few seconds. It was amazing. One of my fastest watched short video I've ever made on YouTube. And you can understand why. People have come to the conclusion that this world isn't full of opportunity. It's full of losing your dignity for a job that won't even pay you enough to eat every day. That's what's out there. And that's why these women are having to turn to these sorts of I don't even know, opportunities or the lack of opportunity. They're having to turn to doing things that they would normally not do. Remember, college educated. These aren't high school dropouts. These aren't people also that have experienced the comfort of a decent paycheck in their lives. They're people that have experienced nothing but pain and suffering in the workforce.